I made it to Thunder Valley Casino, where tonight I am co-hosting a meetup game with Johnny Vibes, Lexi Gavin, and Tyler Patterson, and this is such a surreal moment for me after starting out my poker journey before I ever thought I'd make poker YouTube videos, before I ever thought I'd play poker for a living. I used to watch every single one of Johnny's vlogs, so now here we are co-hosting a meetup game tonight. It is gonna be such a special time. I can't wait to get out there and play with every single one of you. Have a great time, have some drinks, and of course, get some good hands for the vlog. So I will see you guys down there. Let's go do this meetup game, Thunder Valley Casino.
I'm super happy to be here at Thunder Valley Casino, and already I've been impressed by their hotel rooms. They're super awesome. I headed downstairs a few hours early, so I was ready to jump in a brand new 2-5 game where the max buy-in is $1,000. I was greeted by friendly staff, and the poker dealers were all great. I'm ready to jump in and play some poker. Let's get into some hands. In this hand, there's a limp from under the gun too, and I'm in middle position and look down at pocket tens, and I raised to $25. Only the original limper calls, so we're going heads up to a flop. The flop comes 3-8-6 with 2 hearts, so this is a very good flop for our hand, having pocket tens. My opponent checks it over to me, and I know this isn't a board that we're going to be down betting our entire range on, so we have to be selective with what hands we're going to bet on this type of texture. This flop will generally bring a lot of draws for my opponent, and while I think it's close, I think I still have a slight nut advantage having all the overpairs where my opponent really can't have, but he definitely could have limp called with a lot of hands like pocket 6s, 8s, or 3s, but the way I play, I can also have those hands because I'm never limping pre-flop, I'm always putting in a raise. So with pocket 10s here, this is definitely a hand that needs protection. I know we're gonna have some checkbacks in our range, and actually after looking at the solver, it looks like we should be checking black 10s here about 75% of the time. But here's the thing, if we are gonna bet, as you can see, we want to bet a little bit bigger, like half pot or more. So since I knew this was a board we weren't gonna always be betting, it's important to know that we should be betting a little bit bigger on these types of boards. So I go for a bet size of $35. Then I'm not super surprised to see a check raise from my opponent to 85. I think my opponent can be check raising some draws in this spot. However, given my quick assessment of my opponent, I think he is pretty straightforward. However, we still have an overpair to this board. I'm not going to give up just yet being in position, so I make the call and we head to a turn card. The turn is a pretty sweet card. It is a 10, but it is the 10 of hearts, bringing in the heart flush. Now my opponent leads into me for $100. And at this point, the question is, how many flushes does my opponent have? And how often does he check raise his draws like 9-7 suited and his flush draws? I think in a vacuum at lower stakes, players don't check raise draws enough, so I wasn't super worried about a flush. I think in this player pool, players aren't balanced enough and they're really going to be calling a lot of their draws, especially being out of position. So at this point, I want to try and get all the money in. I don't want another heart to fall on the river and then slow my opponent down if he happens to have a set or 2 pair, or possibly a weird slow played overpair like jacks. So let's get it in. I essentially go all in for my opponent's entire stack, which he had about $300 behind at this point. He started the hand with around 500. He slowly pushes in his chips and then says, "I have a set." And I was absolutely floored. My opponent had pocket 8s and I knew he was drawing to just 1 out. We head to a river card, it's clean, and in my first playable hand, we felt our opponent and now add another $500 to our stack. A great start. The table had agreed to do a round of $10 straddles, and in this hand, it was my turn to put the $10 under the gun straddle on. Next to act raises to $30. It folds all the way around to me, and I look down at ace-10 offsuit. I straddle and pick up a decent ace. I'm not folding, so I make the call, and we go heads up to a flop of 6-7-9 rainbow. This is a board that my opponent will have some checks on, as well as some bigger bet. I don't see any merit to down betting this board, as it's very dynamic and it definitely hits my range more than my opponent's under the gun range. As you can see here, my opponent's under the gun range should be pretty snug playing 9-handed. Although he certainly will have some hands like 9-10 suited, 9-8 suited, etc. I think with my hand, I can put some pressure on him with some bad turn cards. So as predicted, my opponent does decide to check back on this board, so I'm hoping there will be some good turn cards that I can bet. Sure enough, the turn card comes in offsuit 5, so there's no flushes available. Now it's time to put pressure on my opponent. We can get better aces to fold, like if he check back a hand like ace-king or ace-queen, even pocket aces, kings, queens, jacks, etc. are going to have a very hard time continuing on this board texture. So we don't want to put in any small bets here. We want to start charging our opponent and polarizing a little bit, as we can have all the 6x combinations that make a straight. We can have pocket 6s, ace-6 suited, king-6 suited, the list goes on. So we're just going to put max pressure here, and I put out almost a pot-sized bet of $50, planning to absolutely bomb the river if we have to. I put out my bet and then my opponent says... So as you can see, our opponent finds the fold. Obviously, we definitely got a better hand to fold, and in poker, that is a great result. In this hand, I'm under the gun 1, and I look down at pocket kings, and I raise to $20. Only the button calls, so we are going heads up to a flop of, you guessed it, ace, 10, deuce with 2 hearts. Don't you love it when that ace comes on the flop? So what's pretty cool is we have to look at our opponent's range here, and he's on the button. He's gonna have a lot of suited aces, hands like ace 6 suited, ace 7 suited, etc., as well as maybe some offsuit Broadway aces like ace jack offsuit. So just because an ace comes on the flop does not mean we have range advantage on this board, as our opponent is gonna have a lot of aces. For this reason, this isn't a flop we always want to down bet as well as bet. We can have some nice check raises on this board, like if we have ace king with the king of hearts, for example. We can also check raise our sets, so like if we flop a set of 10s, it's a really nice hand to check raise as we unblock our opponent having an ace. But in this case, we have a hand that wants protection, we want to keep the pot manageable, and all these things apply because we are out of position in this hand. So I check, my opponent checks back, we're headed to a turn card, which is an offsuit 8. I think we can make a case for checking again. It would give our opponent room to start bluffing. However, I wanted to bet for a protection given that there's a flush draw out there and I do not have the king of hearts in my hand. We can also get value from like a 10x combination at this point, and of course all flush draws, so I put out a bet of $20. My opponent calls yet again, so now we're headed to a river card, which is an offsuit 3. At this point, I'm pretty confident I have the best hand, and I'm gonna check, hoping that my opponent takes a stab at it if he has a draw. However, I check and my opponent checks behind, and we flip over our hand and we are good.
Alright, we are about to start the meetup game. I'm super excited. It's a $5 big blind, 2K max, so it's gonna be pretty fun.
So in the next year or so, you guys are going to be watching me play mid to high stakes, but mostly mid stakes. And I've been watching some of the videos from the course Mid Stakes Mastery by Brian Paris and Mike Wasserman. These guys are 2 of the top mid stakes players in the world. They play tournaments with about the same buy-in size as the ones I play, and they don't hold anything back in this course. As you can see here, Brian has over 15 million in verified earnings, and Mike Wasserman was formerly ranked the #1 online player in the world by Pocket Fives. The newly updated course just went on sale, Mid Stakes Mastery 2023. It's a $697 course, but if you use my link, the price is going to drop all the way down to $297. That's $400 off. Even if you're not interested in buying the course, click the link up here or in the video description to watch a free webinar with Brian and Mike where they reveal several of their secrets. So you heard me say this is a 2-5 game. It's actually going to be a 3-5-5 game with a max buy-in of $2,000, so that's what we're going to be in for. In the first hand I get dealt, it folds to me on the button, and I look down at ace king of clubs. I raise to $20, and both the small blind and the big blind come along, so we're going 3 ways to a flop of 10, 6, 7 rainbow. Small blind checks, and then the big blind leads into me for $20. This board texture is going to hit my opponents a lot, and someone could have flopped the nuts on this hand with 9-8. I have a really good hand that wants to realize its equity. Although there's no club out there to give us a backdoor flush draw, I do have 2 overcards, so I make the call to see what develops. A small blind folds, so we go heads up to a turn, which is the queen of diamonds. My opponent checks, and now I pick up a gutter and I have 2 overcards. While I can certainly bet here, I just decided to check back and see if we can improve on rivers. Unfortunately, the river is the deuce of hearts. My opponent then bets $85. I can't rep much at all at this point, so I put in the fold, and we're going to move on to the next hand. In this hand, my friend Kyle, aka Cali Kid, aka my Poker Bros sponsored pro teammate, raises to $25 in early position. I flat the beautiful Jack 10 of hearts in the hijack, and the big blind comes along as well, so we're going 3 ways to a flop of Jack 5, 6 with 2 diamonds. The big blind checks, Kyle checks, and now it's on me. I think with this a hand we can bet for protection as well as value, so I put out a bet of $25. Only Cali Kid makes the call, so we're going heads up to a turn card, which is the deuce of diamonds, so now the diamond flush gets there. He checks, and now I'm going to check back and assess rivers, so we head to a river card, which is the 9 of clubs. He checks yet again. Given the action, I'm pretty sure I have the best hand here. I think I'm going to go for some thin value, hopefully get called by an unbelieving pocket pair, like maybe 7s, pocket 10s possibly if he checks that on the flop. The 9 is also kind of a nice card because 9-8 that might have floated the flop now makes a pair, so I put out a bet of $75. Unfortunately, he doesn't have much to call us with, so he folds, but we do pick up the pot. In this hand, it folds around to me in the middle position, and I look down at ace-king suited, this time the spade variety. I raise it up to $25. We're about $2,000 effective in this hand, and my opponent to my left then decides to put in the 3-bet to 85. It folds back around to me, and being suited, out of position, I'm definitely going to put in the 4-bet here, and I want to make it a little bit bigger being out of position, so I raise to $300. My opponent hems and haws, doesn't really want to fold. He said, I wish I wouldn't have put in the 3-bet, and then folds pocket 8 face up. So we get a pair to fold pre-flop with ace high and take down all the dead money.
Okay, meetup game, a tad bit tipsy because these guys at Run Good always get me drinking, but a super fun time, and so far not very many like crazy hands for the vlog, but we are winning, so we'll keep going.
Alright, you guys know what time it is. It is about time to put on those seatbelts and buckle up. In this hand, the $10 straddle is on by yours truly. We have 3 blinds in this game, a $3, a $5, and a $5. So in this case, it folds all the way around to Cali Kid, aka Kyle, and he puts in the raise to $40. Then the player to our right puts in the 3-bet to $150. Then I look down at pocket queens. I don't expect Kyle to have a very big hand too often. He's going to try and raise and attack the blinds in this spot a lot, so he can have a very wide range. The player to my right then could be squeezing with also a very wide range of hands, so it seemed like a very juicy spot for me to put in the 4-bet, deny equity against overcards, and raise for value, so I put in the cold 4-bet to $400. And now it's back on Cali Kid.
And then holy shit, Ashley just throws out 4 black chips and makes it 400 to go. So now it's my turn to go into the tank and think about how I want to play this. I could 5-bet, I could 5-bet jam, I could just flat, which actually I really wanted to do. The only reason why I didn't is because we have Chris in the middle here, and I'm not sure I want to price in a 3rd player and then play post-flop out of position. I just go for the easiest route. If one of them wants to call me, that's awesome. And if they don't, it's already a $600 pot.
So he goes all in for his $2,000. We were $2,000 effective in this hand, so this is a huge shove. This would be a giant pot if I make the call. I said to him, I didn't expect you to have a hand. If anything, I thought I was going to be battling the 3-better in this spot. So now it seems like he actually woke up with a hand. I don't think he's ever doing this with pocket jacks. Ace-king suited can definitely take this line, but otherwise, I'm absolutely crushed by aces and kings. I started talking to him a little bit, and then he said this.
You should fold. I'm being nice.
Are you really?
I'm vlogging this. Here, you can subscribe and watch.
I did not expect you to have.
I did not expect you to have a hand.
After he told me to fold, I wasn't sure if he was trying to level me or not. I know he's my friend and my fellow Poker Bros sponsored pro, but we are at the poker table. You shouldn't always believe what people say at the table, but in this case, I went with my gut and my instincts and I folded my queens face up, hoping that I was right, and here's what happened.
Nice hand. Wait, show it, please! Oh my god! Holy shit!
So we make the correct fold, we get shown pocket aces. Thanks to Cali Kid for being so fun to play with, and you guys make sure to check out his poker vlog. In this hand, I raise with 7-6 of clubs from early position to $25. I pick up one caller who's an older gentleman who is playing pretty snug 2 spots over to my left, so we go heads up to a flop of 6 deuce, 5 with 1 club. So we flop ourselves top pair, a backdoor straight draw, and flush draw. We have a pretty strong hand and we have a lot of backdoor possibilities, so I'm gonna bet, and I put out a bet of $50. My opponent makes the call. The turn is another 6, so now we have trips. I'm gonna start sizing up, polarizing just like I would do with my bluffs and my value, so I put out a bet of $100.
Don't splash the pot.
And in my club, I will splash the pot whenever the fuck I please.
My opponent makes the call yet again. So when my opponent calls this time, I can deduct him from having hands like king queen, queen jack, jack 10, probably even ace queen if he doesn't 3-bet that hand pre-flop. So he's very heavily weighted towards 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s, and possibly jacks. Although it's very unlikely he has pocket 7s given that I have one in my hand. So because of this, I'm going to keep charging all those hands and extracting value from them. So now we're headed to a river card, which is a 7. So now we make a very sneaky full house. So now at this point, because I've sized up on the flop and the turn, my opponent should have a very strong hand because he called both of my large bets. What also heavily weights him towards having overpairs is because there was also no flush draws available. I'm pretty confident at this point in the hand my opponent has a hand like pocket 9s, 10s, or jacks. I want to get maximum value as he's going to think this river card is great for him. Plus, I haven't shown every single hand I've played, but I've been splashing around a lot, you guys. The drinks, the alcohol has definitely got me bluffing and putting chips in this pot. So because of this very splashy image I've created, I'm going to go for a very big bet of $305. My opponent doesn't think very long before putting in the call. We show our full house and we scoop a very, very nice pot. So at this point in the night, my note-taking skills have diminished as I'm about 3 drinks in. So I think pre-flop what happened was I had king jack of spades and raised to $25. And then my opponent in middle position 3-bets to $100. I'm not going to fold a suited Broadway to a 3-bet, so I make the call and we head to a flop that is jack high with 2 diamonds. At this point, my opponent only has about 400 or less in his stack and he bets $90. Again, I've created a crazy image, so I want to seem reckless and crazy, so I just slide all my greens out in the middle. He doesn't think very long before putting in the call. I'm not sure what he has, but we're headed to see all 5 cards. The turn is a pretty crappy card. It's an ace. The river does not improve my hand, and then my opponent flips over ace queen offsuit, so unfortunately we outflop him. He puts all his chips in with 2 overcards. This is the kind of action we wanted, but not the result that we wanted. Pretty defeating. We lose $400-ish on this hand. In this hand, I had just topped up, so I have about $1,800 in front of me, and I added on $500. I wish so badly I could remember the pre-flop and flop and turn action. However, I think my opponent led the turn. I raised to $400, he made the call, and then river I 2x potted for $1,800, and my opponent didn't think very long before pretty much snapping me off with king queen offsuit. I felt like it was a spot where I was uncapped, had all the sets, all the 2 pairs, all the ace-x combinations, but my opponent apparently doesn't like to fold. He was new to the table. Wish I would have known this before I jammed 2x pot on the river, but when is the last time, or if any time, you guys have ever seen me jam 2x pot for $1,800 on the river with queen high? Not sure I've ever done it, so I'm proud of myself for taking the line. Just didn't work out for me as my opponent found the mega hero call with king queen and we lose our entire stack. So now we're reloading and now we're in this game for $4,000 total. So after that hand, I tried to tighten up a little bit, but I was forcing the action in spots you really shouldn't. So when you're losing and things don't go your way, it's really important to not force the action, to let things come to you and not just go crazy just because you're stuck. It was a meetup game, so I wanted to induce action and I wanted everybody to have a great time. There was another hand I didn't take notes on, but we played a bomb pot and I had ace jack. The flop came ace high and I got it all in with an opponent who didn't have very much in front of him, and unfortunately he had flopped 2 pairs, so a little bit unlucky, and I lost about $400 on that hand. I had a very early flight to catch in the morning as I was off on my way to Vegas to the WPT Meetup game with a bunch of absolute legends, so it was time to rack up. I was in the game for $4,000 and unfortunately cashed out with $1,800 for a loss of $2,200.
If you guys enjoyed the vlog, would you do me a huge favor and go all in and like, comment, and subscribe? It would mean the world to me. We're just getting started and it's only up from here. I'll see you guys on the next vlog.